So first off, let me say thanks to all of you that asked questions for the last NFL Draft Q&A video. It's the first installment. There will be several more of these in the next couple of months to come. Thanks for the response, those that chose to watch it. And those that took to Twitter this time to ask your questions, remember the Twitter handle is at @TheJeffSchlegel. It will be in the description box down below in case you want to know. I'm enjoying doing this. I know I love talking about the NFL Draft. Could do it year-round. I know a lot of you are in the same boat and feel the same way. And now that the Combine's officially in the books, draft season really is underway. And we've got a little less than 2 months left until the kickoff of the 2016 NFL Draft. And I'm so excited. I just can't contain myself. I'm getting for clips and everything. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. I think we got some good questions this time, but we'll find out. I'm just assuming we've got good questions. Haven't really peeped them yet. I found the starting point. We'll just work from there. S. Walker Jr., 66. Joey Bosa runs pretty much a 4.9. He's falling out of the top 10, right? I don't think he falls out of the top 10. I think he falls out of the top 5, which is more of a realistic range for where he should have gone to begin with. Me personally, I don't think Bosa's worth a top 10 pick. If I be wrongs, I be wrongs. But I just don't see it. I think this is another example of overrated media hype. Like, for example, when people talk about Bosa having this tremendous nonstop motor, these people in the media clearly didn't fucking watch the film. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of the media keeps finding ways to hype up certain guys because in this case, they see a white defensive end and they want to compare him to J.J. Watt. So as a result, they create narratives, and they're bullshit narratives about it at that. If you want to talk about positives to Bosa's game, talk about his length, his strength, his technique. His motor, I assure you, is not one of them. He is a jogger. And once a play gets past him, he has no desire to pursue whatsoever. And as far as I'm concerned, people should be more concerned about the fact that he's frankly a better prospect on film and a better player in 2014 than he was in 2015. And that's just the truth. I don't really get it about all this big Bosa's the best player on the board. If you really think Joey Bosa is the best player in this draft, then what does that say about this draft class? There is no fucking way on God's green earth. He's not even the best defensive prospect in this draft class. There are several, I think, that are better than him, and he most certainly isn't even the best defensive line prospect in this draft class. And in fact, I think there are a couple that are better than him. First-round talent, yes, especially in this draft, that I don't think is all that particularly great, but I don't know that he drops out of the top 10. If people start to dig a little bit and they start to get more concerns about character and they start to worry a little bit more about off-the-field issues, then yes, there's a very big possibility he drops out of the top 10 because, again, he's not a special edge rusher. He doesn't have incredible explosiveness. Then he also asks, could you envision Shaq Lawson being an explosive edge rusher if he dropped weight considering he ran a 4.7 at 270 pounds? And this is where the Combine can be fool's gold in terms of the 40, in terms of the drills. Like for Joey Bosa, his 40 time was not very good, but that was never going to be an expectation of his that he ran a great 40 time to begin with. People will look at the field drills that he did, especially at linebacker, and assume that he could play outside linebacker in a 3-4, and he's just not quick twitch enough. He's just not explosive enough. He could maybe fit for the Baltimore Ravens and be a Terrell Suggs type of player, perhaps, but it could be misleading. I think Shaq Lawson's workout numbers are misleading if you watch the film again, and that's where we should default to, not how these guys work out in shorts, how they play in pads on game day. Shaq Lawson is not an explosive player. I think he's a well-rounded player, and I think he's going to be a very good NFL player and a very good starting defensive end. But this talk of him playing 3-4 outside linebacker, he was typically the last to get off of the ball, off of the snap at Clemson. And on top of that, he wasn't very explosive to begin with. Not very quick twitch. So these are things where sometimes you got to be careful because you could be fooled by these guys because they could spend weeks working on specified things in drills, knowing what's going to come in the Combine in terms of the workouts, in terms of the individual drills, and they could kind of fool themselves and fuck around and look better than they really are. It's like when you have job interviews and there are certain people that are very, very skilled at saying the right things in an interview to move on in an interview and to ultimately get the job. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were a good choice, a good hire, a good fit for the position, but they've just figured out a way to, I don't want to say cheat the system, but they figured out a way in part to, kind of figure out how it works and work within the structure of how things are set up, the infrastructure of it. And that's, to me, an example of what could have happened here with Shaq Lawson. First round talent, yes, maybe lower portion of first round still. The workout numbers weren't bad by any stretch of the imagination. They probably help him, but again, the film to me doesn't lie, and the film to me says that this guy lacks quick twitch. He lacks explosiveness. He's not a guy that's going to consistently collapse the edge, as I've talked about in some scouting report videos that I've done so far, in that 4 to 5 to 7 yard range, which is what you need out of a truly explosive edge rusher, and he just doesn't have it. Kath and Max, do you think tagging Alshon Jeffrey was the right choice? I most certainly do. It was what I was advocating for. I'm okay with paying him $14+ million for 1 year. Give him another year to prove he can stay healthy. Give him another year to prove that he can play consistently at the number 1 receiver level. There are games where he does. But then there are a lot of games where he's a complete non-factor and he just totally disappears. You need more consistent production out of a number 1 wide receiver. And especially for the Bears, with Kevin White looking to play in 2016, their first-round pick from the last draft, if he plays well, it gives the Bears some leverage. Right now, the Bears are exercising their leverage. They have all the leverage, in my opinion. And as a result, I would be in no hurry to give Jeffrey a long-term deal at this point in time. Pimp Lord 619, thoughts on the Chargers possibly taking Buckner at 3, or would you go Bosa or Ramsey? I think Bosa is a mistake for them at number 3. In terms of defensive players, I think Buckner is a much better natural fit in the 3-4 that they run, and I frankly just think he's a better prospect and player. But in their case, I would either go with Jalen Ramsey, or I'll throw this name out there too, Myles Jack. I would. Either one of those 3 guys. Buckner's a great fit. Jalen Ramsey would be a tremendous fit. Although allowing Eric Weddle to walk just so you can bring in Jalen Ramsey to kind of replace him is kind of a bit of a lateral move, and you really don't want to be in the business of doing that too often when it comes to the draft. But if Ramsey is your top-rated player on the board, then that's the direction you go. Maybe you hope that Tennessee falls so much in love with the Jalen Ramsey that they just pull the trigger on him at number 1. Knowing Cleveland's going to take Carson Wentz at number 2, you could end up having Laremy Tunsil fall into your lap at number 3. And that, I think, is the ideal situation for the San Diego Chargers, is to have an offensive tackle be there that's worth that 3rd overall pick. Stanley's not, but Laremy Tunsil is. And I think all else goes the way the Chargers would want. That's what happens. Is that Ramsey goes 1, Wentz goes 2, and then at number 3, they can have their choice. They could go Buckner, they could go Myles Jack, they'll go Laremy Tunsil, and they'll be right for doing so. CM Punk fan, Ponte J. Smooth asks, who should the Giants draft in the 1st round? Well, I've been on it for a little bit about them and Ezekiel Elliott. And I think what he does is it's one of these situations where you say, oh, the running back position is devalued, But if the guy grades out that highly, then you take him at pick 10, and he still ends up being a bargain, a value. And I think he is. He's one of the top 5 players in this draft for me beyond question. Maybe the top 3 or 4. The reason I say that is you've got an offensive-minded head coach again in Ben McAdoo. You've got only so much left in Eli Manning. The Giants never really committed to the run game the past couple of years. They would go at times with Rashard Jennings, and then they would try to go with guys like Shane Vereen and Orleans Darkwa and Andre Williams. At some point in time, you have to figure out a way to get more balance in that offense, because that lack of balance in that offense is really hurting that defense that already stinks to begin with. Now, if Ezekiel Elliott wasn't on the board, or if they went in a different direction, you're probably looking at a defensive end. If Bosa was there at 10, he'd be a tremendous pick for them. I think a guy like Jonathan Bullard, because of his versatility to be able to play inside or outside, makes a lot of sense for them as well. Maybe it's somebody like an Agba, a Shaq Lawson. I don't think DeForest Buckner's there, but he would be a possibility as well. But I think, to me, the draft for the Giants begins and ends with Ezekiel Elliott. Just my opinion. Raiders SoCal. Who should the Raiders select with the 14th overall pick? The honest answer is, outside of a quarterback, the best available player on the board. If you were the Oakland Raiders and Ezekiel Elliott is there at number 14, he would clearly be the best available player on the board. No offense to Latavius Murray, no offense Raiders fans, but if you were disappointed or pissed off about the Ezekiel Elliott pick, you would be fucking idiots. Period. Now, a lot of Raiders fans seem to be up in arms about the thought of them taking an offensive tackle here in round 1 because they've seen Donald Penn's play the past 2 years and say he's not that bad, but he's also over the age of 30. How much longer is he going to play at a decent level? If the best available player is an offensive tackle, then you take him. On the defensive side of the ball, if it's a defensive tackle, you take him. If it's a linebacker like Reggie Ragland, you take him. If it's a corner, somebody along the lines of Eli Apple or Vernon Hargraves, you take him. One thing they've done well the past couple of drafts is they haven't gambled in terms of taking these big combine workout warriors and then hoping they become NFL players. They've taken players. They've taken football players. Khalil Mack, Derek Carr, Gabe Jackson, Justin Ellis, Amari Cooper. They've taken football players. And that's what they need to do here. They need to take football players. And with that 14th overall pick, they need to get a really good football player. Somebody with low bust potential with still a decent to high ceiling. And where they're picking at 14, they have a chance to have somebody that's a top 10 talent, or maybe 2 of them, drop to them at 14 and be able to have their choice. Let's see here. Grossbeck Alex, who is a realistic running back for the Titans to get early on in the draft? In terms of if you're talking about second round, I think the Titans might go more of that in the third round, unless they took Jalen Ramsey number 1 overall. If they take Tunsil in the first round, they're probably coming back with safety in round 2. Maybe somebody like Carl Joseph from West Virginia. Maybe somebody like, if he's still there, which I don't think he would be, a Keanu Neal from Florida. They might even trade back up into round 1 to go get him. But in terms of second to third round running back prospects, I mean, you've got Derrick Henry. People talk about him. I personally love the fit of C.J. Prosise from Notre Dame in their system, and I've done several mock drafts in the past where I've had him go into them in round 2. I don't think he would be there in round number 3. So there are some guys. Let's see here who else. Maybe somebody like a Kenneth Dixon would be another option. Maybe a little bit later on, a guy that's got some athleticism but some durability questions, and a Kenyon Drake from Alabama. So there's a few different guys. Tora Nakamura. What round do you think William Jackson will go first? And I think based off of the workouts he just did, people will go back and watch his tape more. As a result, they might like his tape even more. I wouldn't be surprised if William Jackson III from Houston ended up being the first corner taken in this draft. Boom! I just said it. Stephen Law, who is the best press corner in this year's draft other than Ramsey? I would probably say Eli Apple. He plays with the most physicality based off of what I've seen so far, and that's very preliminary. There's concerns about if he's going to be Brandon Brownerish, I think, in terms of does he use his hand too much? Does he get way too grabby? But he would probably be the best press corner, him or maybe some people think like a Xavier Howard from Baylor. Personally, I think Ramsey's a safety. So that's why I would be drafting him super high based off of his special abilities as a safety. Duke THS, the team most likely to draft a kicker and the worst possible draftees the Bills could actually acquire. In round 1, Robert Nkemdiche from Ole Miss. You don't want any part of that, brother, I assure you. In terms of the team most likely to draft a kicker, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Myers was all right on field goals, but he missed a lot of extra points. And I tell you this much, is you're going to see an increase in value of kickers in the years to come, because teams now understand the importance of hitting that 33-yard extra point. So a guy like a Roberto Aguayo from Florida State, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in round 2. I'm just saying. And I most certainly can almost guarantee you he's not falling out of round 3. And if the Jacksonville Jaguars are sitting there in the 3rd round, he's got to be very, very appealing, very, very tempting to them. Let's see here. Mike Mark 0994. What teams would benefit most by trading up? I haven't really thought about that too much. In terms of teams within round 1, I'll look at that more as I go along. I think there will be more benefit to teams peeling up from the early to mid portion of round 2 to get back into the tail end portion of round 1. Teams like Tennessee could benefit from that. A Baltimore could benefit from that. Maybe a Jacksonville could benefit from that. And part of the reason being is because that move might not necessitate giving up a ton of picks, but what it could also do is give you a second potential impact player that you've got under a rookie contract for as long as 5 years, and I think this is very important. What's the difference between the Tennessee Titans taking somebody at pick number 32, or the Cleveland Browns, let's say even, and they might be another candidate to peel up a little bit to get back into round 1. The Browns at 32 or the Titans at 33. What's the difference between that position and them picking at 31, 30, or 29? It's an extra year of guaranteed money on that rookie contract. And that could be very, very valuable. And it could be a tremendous asset to have in your back pocket. So it potentially delays the clock on having to sign him to a big money deal. So I think, as teams figure out more and more the reality of the current rookie contract structure, you'll see more activity from teams wanting to peel back up into the bottom portion of round one to not wait for their guys to potentially be there in round two because they're going to want that extra year of control. But in terms of teams within the first round trading up, I haven't looked at that too much yet. R. Smith, 987654333. Wide receiver, defensive end. Which should be targeted for the Buffalo Bills in the first round? I think this kind of depends. Because if Ryan's want to go more to a 3-4, you might be looking at an edge rusher here. I personally, my opinion, and I'm just going to say this now, I think Noah Spence has been a little bit overrated for a while now, and I think in particular fans and NFL draft media haven't put nearly enough weight on the off-the-field issues and nearly enough weight on the interviews that he apparently continues to bomb. I'd be surprised at this point if he does go round number one. But if he did, a team like Arizona is a tremendous fit with the infrastructure that general manager Steve Keim and head coach Bruce Arians have in place. They've shown an ability to take risk on some of these guys like Honey Badger, and it's paid off very, very well. For Rex Ryan, he's another guy that, a prospect like Noah Spence would make a tremendous sense for, in the sense that, Rex Ryan seems to be really good with these type of higher risk guys. The Cincinnati Bengals with Marvin Lewis, even though this another type of guy you really want to bring in, would be another kind of natural fit. In terms of wide receiver, yeah, you could address it, but I don't think this wide receiver class, is special. They need to get more out of Sammy Watkins before they invest yet another first-round pick in a wide receiver, especially considering they basically gave up an extra first-round pick in 2015 to go get Watkins in 2014. I think defensive end, some type of edge rusher, pass rusher is probably the direction they go. Let's see here. Laurent Desmet. Your favorite pick for the Saints at number 12. Jarran Reed, Noah Spence, Leonard Floyd, or trade down and snatch Bullard or Dachshund? The trade down thing, it always sounds nice as a fan because I can still get this guy and we can get additional picks. Are you going to have the right trading partner? Like in this last draft, honestly, 2015, there was a lot of anticipated trade activity. I was very high on the possibility of there being a lot of trades, and it just never manifested. It never materialized. It just didn't come. And it could be that same way again, especially in this particular draft with the lack of, first-round talent, if I'm just being honest. With 31 first-round picks, again, as I referenced before, I don't know that there's 20 players with a true first-round grade for me. There might be more 16, 17, maybe if I'm generous, 18. So a lot of teams are going to have a desire to peel back, but maybe not a lot of teams are going to have a desire to trade up. In terms of your question overall, though, the Saints at number 12, a pass-rushing defensive tackle makes a world of sense. I think it's too high for Sheldon Rankins, but he would seem to be a logical fit. I personally think Jarran Reed is a better football player, so he would make a lot of sense. I don't know where Leonard Floyd fits when you've already got Stephon Anthony and Haloi Kakaha. Are you going to sit there and play Floyd at weak side linebacker? Maybe he could hang there, but do you really want to put him there? I just don't know about that. That's just me anyway. So I think Bullard would be a tremendous fit for you guys, actually, and I think he should be getting a lot more consideration and buzz than he really does. And I don't know necessarily that at the end of the day you should be trading down and running the risk that Bullard will be there. I mean, maybe he will because a lot of NFL scouting departments and general managers, frankly, aren't good at their jobs. Just because they have the jobs, people, doesn't mean that they're very good at them, and we know this. So they do stupid stuff all the time. Game on 300. Will Hackenberg be a bust for the Texans even with being around Bill O'Brien? And what round do you think Jacoby Brissett should go? Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I have not fully graded and evaluated Hackenberg or Brissett yet. So everything that I talk about is off of fleeting glimpses and, occasional watching. I still don't see what all the buzz is about Hackenberg, but again, I haven't went and fully studied 3 years worth of tape yet, and that'll be coming very soon, I assure you. Based off of what I've seen from Brissett so far, third to fourth round seems like a range for me. 4th round, he makes actually a solid 4th round pick. Based off of what I've seen, that's where I think Hackenberg should go. Although for the Houston Texans, again, it's different. Now, maybe they get lucky, and he didn't apparently work out very well at the Combine. Maybe you can get him there in round number 2. But I wouldn't fuck around too much. If that's your dude, you go get him no matter what. Chris Masters 010. Would you rather have Joey Bosa or Myles Jack play for your Bears? Myles Jack, and it's not even fucking close. Myles Jack is a special talent. Joey Bosa is not. You figure out where to play Myles Jack. I don't want to be figuring out where to play Joey Bosa. I'm just saying. Calf and Max, besides Wentz, Goff, and Lynch, what are your quarterback power rankings? Haven't graded all of the other quarterbacks yet. So that remains to be seen yet, honestly. And as far as where I rank guys, I do want to say that in some of these cases, I've done scouting report videos on some players. Keep in mind that could still change. It is fluid. And as I go back sometimes and watch again and revisit, watch more film, some guys may move up a little bit. Some guys may move down a little bit. You'll know if I'm really sold on where a guy is or isn't because I go out of my way to tell you whether you like it or not. But in terms of this point in time, Wentz is clearly my number 1 quarterback on the board, and I think anything the offseason process so far has validated me in that. And a lot of people have now caught up to me. You're welcome. Let's see here. California EST 96. Are the Rams going to pick Taylor Decker at number 15? No. I think Decker's getting a little unfair pub, and I don't understand why people are higher on Jack Conklin than they are Decker. That's just me based off the film I've watched so far of Conklin compared to Decker. I think this is, again, speaking similar to Shaq Lawson, where players can fool you a little bit by preparing for certain things in drills to where they can kind of scam their way through the test. But the film, to me, doesn't lie, and that's what matters. Let's see here. Then we got Jeff Schlegel Jr. You probably don't want to be my junior kiddo. Hey, Dad, from 2010 to 2016, how does Carson Wentz compare to other previous first-round quarterbacks taken? Much better as a prospect than Sam Bradford in 2010. Not quite the prospect that Cam Newton was in 11. 2012, honestly, I know it's Andrew Luck and with Stanford and everything, but it kind of measures up with him. If he played at a bigger school, people would agree with that, and they'd be talking about the real narrative of who's going to trade up to number 1 to where the Titans are, because the Titans got Mariota. They don't need a quarterback. Somebody else is going to have to move up. Is that going to be the Cowboys? Is that going to be the 49ers? Is that going to be the Browns, the Chargers, the Chicago Bears, the Miami Dolphins? So let's see here. 2013, he'd been the best quarterback. 2014, actually best quarterback. And then last year's draft class behind Winston and Mariota. NFL draft guy. Hypothetical situation for the Bears at 11. And this must mean assuming that all these guys are available. Who would I take? Ezekiel Elliott, Ronnie Stanley, Jalen Smith, and Jared Goff. Who's the pick? Now, a lot of you might anticipate me saying Jared Goff because I do like Jared Goff. I think he's getting a little too much undue hate because of his smaller hands. I think he's got like 9-inch hands. That's a concern, but that's not the be-all, end-all. Having big hands is not the be-all, end-all of being a successful NFL starting quarterback. You may sit there and ask yourselves, well, usually you've been talking about for the past 5-6 years about how the Bears need to draft a quarterback in the first round. They could very well be in the position. And it's very possible that Jared Goff is on the board when the Bears pick at number 11. So they have to take him, right? Ezekiel Elliott is a far superior prospect in my mind overall. You go best available player on the board. I know people will talk about Jeremy Langford, this and that. Jeremy Langford is not an Ezekiel Elliott type of talent. What's the best way to replace Matt Forte is with another Matt Forte, and I think Ezekiel Elliott could potentially be better than Matt Forte. If it wasn't Ezekiel Elliott, though, if everything had checked out with his medicals, and which they haven't apparently, we'll see what happens come April. If come April, there's better news about his medicals, and maybe, he'll miss 2016, but it'll be good to go after that, and there won't be any long-term nerve damage. Jalen Smith is the pick for me. That's for me. But, that's... So at this moment, based off the 4 names you put out there, in terms of my ranking of them, I can see Ronnie Stanley, too, because the Bears need a left tackle. But I would go, based off of the way you've got this, Elliott 1, Goff 2, Smith 3, Stanley 4, because even with Smith's injury, it's tempting to gamble on the upside. Let's see here. What else we got? Ilias 99. Who are the most intriguing strong safety prospects in this draft? I haven't watched a lot of safeties yet, so not a ton of opinion. So I really can't say at this moment just because I haven't watched enough to see who I think plays free safety or strong safety at the NFL level. You'll find out soon enough. I'm moving on to linebackers and edge rushers now with my individual scouting reports. So once I get done with that, it'll be on to defensive backs. And let's see here. Alex Shirley 10, Titans fan. Should the Titans reach for Jalen Ramsey or go for Laremy Tunsil with the first pick? Frankly, either way. If they think Jalen Ramsey is the #1 player on their board and they feel he is going to be the best player in this draft, and they think as a result, or Myles Jack as well. Myles Jack is, to me, getting enough talk about being a #1 overall pick because of that injury, I suppose. But Tunsil had some injury problems too. You have some questions about Tunsil off the field, and I've talked about those in my scouting report of him. Something that, frankly, wasn't talked about enough with Tunsil, I didn't think. You got to look at specialness and where you'd rather have that special player, special left tackle or special free safety. I guess it depends on your philosophy and your perspective. I would lean towards Tunsil just because you did take Mariota last year. And yes, you've got Lewan, but your priority has to be to better protect Mariota. So if they were even, you go Tunsil. If you grade out Ramsey better, then you go Jalen Ramsey. If you grade out Tunsil better, then for sure you go Tunsil. If they're even, you go Tunsil because of the need. It's best available player at a position of need to me in a lot of cases. And even though you could say with the Titans, outside of quarterback, every other position's a need, and it very well could be, for them in terms of their system, what will fit, I think it's either Ramsey or Tunsil. I would lean towards Tunsil now, but if they did take Ramsey, I wouldn't crap on him too much. And then the final question, is Joey Bosa the most overrated prospect in this draft? I think he is. No, I do not. I think he is overrated. But I don't think he's the most overrated. I think there are a few other guys that are more overrated than him. The most overrated prospect in this draft process for months now, and I've been on top of this, and I have been, is Robert Nkemdiche from Ole Miss. I think just from his film alone, he was not a first-round pick. He really wasn't. And now when you combine all the off-the-field shit, I don't know that he's a day 2 pick. And now the media, it seems like, and other draft experts are starting to catch up with me. And if there's one thing you could say, I'm right about some players and I'm wrong about some players, and it happens every year. There's no question about it. With that said, though, there's one thing you can't deny is that when it comes to me identifying early in the process guys that are going to drop for this reason or that reason, I'm pretty damn good at it. It was Demontre Moore and Bjorn Werner in 2013. In 2015, it was Randy Gregory. And this year, to me, it's Robert Nkemdiche. So I'm sorry it took so long, but a lot of questions, a lot of good questions that elicited some in-depth answers from me. Thanks for all of you that watched this, that submitted your questions. I'll be back again next week with another NFL Draft QA video. Might do 2 of them this upcoming week. We'll see. In terms of other content coming, I've got scouting reports coming up throughout the rest of the week on guys like Myles Jack and Reggie Ragland and Noah Spence, Jalen Smith, Darren Lee, probably Jalen Ramsey, Vernon Hargraves. So make sure you stay tuned because a lot of you have been asking about some of these guys in the back end of defenses. I'm getting to those big-name prospects now, so you want to know what I think about them. You're going to find out soon enough, and I'll probably have another mock draft up here in the next day or 2.